Good morning. I'm Latvia's Foreign Minister Baiba Braže, and we are ready for a day of hard work. First, the session at 32. Our priorities obviously are three. One is strengthening our own NATO's deterrence defense capabilities, so looking at the Hague decisions, making sure how 5% for defense is implemented. In our case, for the next year's budget, we have that confirmed. Hardcore defense capabilities, so not some foggy stuff, and we'll make sure also that our defense forces get what they need. On top of that, we are strengthening our internal security services, resilience of society, critical infrastructure, so on and so forth. So we look forward to all the allies taking their obligations also as seriously. And then, of course, second big priority is support to Ukraine. We all were following the news from both Moscow, but also from Kiev and other places. So nobody should be trying to get results through the so-called peace talks that they can get on the warfield, on the battlefield. And that is what Russia is trying. Russia is trying to undermine the US standing in the world. Russia is trying to split NATO, and they are trying to get it through these so-called peace talks. Ukraine deserves a peace that is just, peace that is long-lasting. So we stand by Ukraine. We will continue supporting Ukraine. We provide about 1% of GDP, if not more, for Ukraine's assistance. So we'll continue doing that. And third big priority is constraining Russia, because our problem is Russia. It's not Ukraine. For NATO, we have defined Russia as the most serious threat for Allied security and Euro-Atlantic security. That means that we have to take measures to weaken Russia. Weaken economy, making sure that sanctions work, making sure our deterrence is strong, and Russia doesn't get either money or technology for its battlefield. Overall, it's working, this approach. It takes time, but we are seeing it has effect on Russian economy.
Should allies take preemptive measures to combat the kind of hybrid attacks we're seeing from Russia?
There are things that are better done and not said, because cyber offensive capabilities, allies have cyber offensive capabilities, and if necessary, they can be employed. But nobody's going to talk about it loudly.
Yesterday he would be ready to go at war to Europe if necessary. What do you make of such comments?
I would advise nobody to listen to Russian propaganda and disinformation. Putin has set his red lines before the war, during the war, and changed it, and that's what he has been saying. Our task is to make sure that we as allies, as NATO, are as strong as we have been. We have maintained peace. The KPI for NATO is peace in Euro-Atlantic area, and we have maintained that since the establishment of NATO in 1914. So that is our task, and that's what we will be doing.
Today is the first time in 22 years that a U.S. Secretary of State is not at this meeting. The last time was Colin Powell in 2003. What message does this send from the Americans that Marco Rubio is not here today?
We have all spoken and met Marco Rubio quite a number of times since he entered the post. So he obviously is very busy with the peace talks and with all the other events. Let's not forget he's also National Security Advisor and doing other things. So we will have Christoph Landau here, and we look to a constructive engagement with him.
Minister, what are NATO's red lines in the peace negotiations? Can you name some?
NATO is not a party to peace negotiations. It's between Russia and Ukraine. And of course, it's facilitated by the US, and we welcome President Trump's efforts to achieve this peace. So,
Minister, do you trust the US in this negotiation? Do you
once
trust
again,
the US?
Yes, I trust the US.
There were rumors that Woodcock might stop by in Brussels today.
I cannot comment on rumors. I'm sorry.
Should you have a greater role, though? These talks seem to be between...
comment on corruption cases in Ukraine?
That shows that Ukraine does have independent anti-corruption agencies, that it's working, and President Zelensky has made a very strong, decisive move to distance himself from all types of rumors. So we welcome this. Unlike in some other countries, it's working. It's working. It's a democracy with strong institutions. I thank you.
Good morning. Europe's destiny is on the line. We all want this war to end, and we welcome peace efforts. But it's imperative that the outcome is a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. This is about the future of Ukraine, but it's also about the future of Europe. We will not accept any new Yaltas. We need to remember the broader picture of European security architecture also after this war, because every war ends, but after every war there is a post-war era that tends to last much longer than the war, and that will be shaped not only after, but also in the final stages of this war. That's why Ukraine needs to stay strong, and we, the allies in the largest and most successful military alliance in the history, needs to stay firm, and we need to stay committed, and we need to stay united behind the efforts to ensure that the ensuing peace will be lasting and fair, just for the Ukrainians. And for that reason, Norway today will announce an additional $500 million for Pearl programs, distributed in 2 packages, one together with Germany and Poland, and one together with Germany and the Netherlands, because this is really a moment to ramp up support for Ukraine. They need to be able to negotiate from a position of strength. And it's also important that we already now remember that when this war eventually ends, Ukraine needs to be capable and able to defend itself against any return of hostilities. And this is a shared commitment, and this will be the key purpose of today's conversations in the NAC meeting, but of course also in the meeting with Ukraine in the NATO-Ukraine Council. I would also add that we appreciate that there is now a good development in NATO on discussions around Arctic security. All the 7 Arctic states in NATO are working closely on developing better concepts and better practices for defending the high north. And I remind you that 7 out of 8 Arctic nations are in NATO. The 8th is, of course, Russia. So this is part of the broader game. We also all strive to live up to the commitments we came out of the Hague meeting with, and I think this will also be an essential part of our conversation today at the NAC. And Norway, with so many others, will underline that these commitments are for real. They are serious, and they are also related to the need to be very clear of what is the defining challenge and defining threat for NATO, which is the developments in Russia, which will still be there when the war in Ukraine hopefully is over one day in a just and fair manner. Thank you for the attention.
Eventually back the release of the frozen Russian assets?
So this is a conversation that is ongoing in the European Union. We follow that closely, but we will see what the EU concludes with, and then we will take it from there. We have no other comments at this time.
Yesterday, President Putin was threatening Europe with war again. What is the reason behind these statements now, and what do you think of that?
Well, if you want Putin's reasoning, you need to ask him. NATO doesn't want war with anybody, but we have been prepared for 76 years. In the 76 years of NATO's existence, no other state has ever attacked a NATO country, and that is because we are always prepared to defend ourselves in the strongest military alliance in history. So I would advise against, but I can assure you that nobody here is seeking a war with Russia, but we are always prepared to defend our territory and our citizens with extremely capable force.
Yesterday, involvement of European side during these negotiations. How important is for you and for your country?
It's absolutely imperative. This is a war in Europe, as we keep saying. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, but nothing about Europe without Europe, because this war happens in our continent. It's the first interstate war for 80 years on our own continent, and the outcome of this war will shape the new post-war era of Europe will be the post-Ukraine war era, and of course Europe has to be part in defining that. One last question.
But how sure are you that the US is taking European interests into account seriously?
Well, this is exactly why we are here in NATO with the United States, with our allies, to make sure that we stand committed, firm and united, because this is in our shared transatlantic interest. It's in the interest of us Europeans, and it's in the interest of our North American friends, Canada and the United States, to stay united in a world world that is increasingly challenging. This is a continuous conversation, but I'm optimistic that this meeting will contribute in a good direction. Thank you.